Can you beat Super Mario Odyssey without walking? The left joystick causes walking, so to make the rules simple for you guys, I basically banned myself from touching that. And since the left joystick is the only thing of use on the left Joy-Con, I played the entirety of this challenge with just the right one. Going into Cascade Kingdom, the start isn't very difficult. Since we can't walk, my only ways of movement are through dives, backflips, and rolling. This makes it particularly difficult in tight sections as these all cover a lot of distance and you don't really have an option to do smaller adjustments. Once I got close to the bridge, I started using first person mode. Without the left joystick, it makes it very hard to turn. So I had to use first person mode whenever I wanted to turn Mario. But there are some problems with this. If you're too close to a wall, the game won't allow you to go into first person mode, and I'm then stuck until I can get away. But I'll go into more details when we run into hard sections. After picking up Cappy, I went over to Top Hat Tower and a major roadblock. You're intended to capture a frog and climb up these massive jumps. But since frogs can't dive, you need the left joystick to move with them. It's possible to get up this room without a frog, but that certainly can't be done without walking. So what do? After a lot of testing and trying everything out, I think it's going to require some semantics. When you capture the frog, he only walks if you move the left stick on the ground. So theoretically, if I were to jump, hold forward, and then let go before I hit the ground, then I wouldn't really be walking. I use this to get to the top of the tower, but since this is obviously dumb and would break the challenge wide open, I will keep track of when I need to use it and try to use it the least amount of times possible. The next big obstacle actually isn't even Topper, it's the path up to him. Since the path is so narrow and there are walls on either side, you can't go into first person mode to change the camera. And you need to change the camera to get up as it winds around in a circle. So I had to perfectly line up a jump and dive onto the railing to change my camera, and this caused me to fall off many times. Topper took me a little longer to beat than I would have liked as I forgot you can throw Cappy at him to stun him, and was instead trying to snipe him with a dive. But eventually the stars aligned and I made Topper transform into this convenient wire. I was a little worried that I would need the left stick to move, but thankfully you can shake your Joy-Cons and it does just the same thing. Cascade Kingdom starts with another small scare. You have to use this chain chomp to break open the rocks and reveal your first power moon. But somehow I lucked out again, and chain chomps will also charge up if you shake your Joy-Cons. So I just had to line them up, shake, and get a moon. After that is a bigger issue. I have to get up to Madame Brood to fight her. I first tried the dino in the hopes that shaking would do something, and although he does step forward and attack, he takes that step right back, so the dino is a no-go. I figured this would be fine. I usually can't use the dinosaur in challenge runs anyway, and headed over to the intended route. I destroyed the rock, watched the chain chomp get teleported to the back rooms, and entered the pipe. Any 2D section is completely impossible to do anything in, as we can't walk and we also can't dive or roll. So I had to come up with something else. 2-player gets a variety of options that aren't available to us in 1-player. More specifically, we now have Cappy to control and move around. So by moving onto this platform, you can use Cappy to jump twice, up throw, and then spam the jump button on Cappy to just barely shove him onto the higher platform. From there, you can just wiggle him around until you hit the checkpoint and can warp up. It took me 20 minutes of attempts, but now I can face Madame Brood. I can't go into first person in this arena for some reason, and therefore can't change directions. I can change directions if I get hit by her or the chain chomp, but I only have 3 lives. I also can't change the direction of the chain chomp, so if I do capture the chain chomp, I basically just have to pray it's at a good enough angle for me to shake my Joy-Con and hit her. There were many times that I would run straight into her and she would slap me out, or I'd hit a wall and she'd lumber over to me and give me a big ol' slap. After 15 minutes, the stars aligned and I got a well-deserved multi-moon. I collected another easy moon and headed into sand. After overlooking the town, I went into this sub-area where you can ground pound a certain spot to get a moon. But I'm too close to the wall to get into first person, and not close enough to the moon to ground pound, so I had to go and try to get other ones. I had some fun in the ruins trying to get a bullet bill to blow up this block. I had to carefully coordinate it to come back here without exploding and ended up just getting hit to collect it. I got several more moons in the ruins and it was very annoying. None of the platforming is too hard, but since there's quicksand below, if you ever fall in then you're just dead. You can't go into first person when you're sinking, so unless you're perfectly aligned with an exit, it just won't work out. I made my way up the tower to try and collect the first story moon when I remembered that I'm an idiot and it's all 2D, so I can't get any of that. Instead, I spent way too long trying to perfectly line myself up with this hole in the ground, and then spent even longer trying to complete this sub area before getting to the end and remembering that I can't wall jump, so I can't even get the moon. It wasn't all for nothing, as the exit pipe gave me a moon, but it was pretty disheartening. I herded some sheep, robbed a lonely man of his sanity, and completed a suicide mission to get this moon back here before moving into Wooded Kingdom. I decided to go there as I had 150 coins that I could use to buy a moon. Wooded requires a lot of moons, so I figured it would be useful. If you're enjoying and want to see more like this every Monday, then make sure to subscribe. Thank you. Along with the moon, I bought a cool hat to keep us stylish and for some extra motivation. I took forever trying to line up the perfect dive to kill this fire bro and then entered flooded pipes. I initially thought the middle moon would be impossible as I can't wall jump. But if you throw Cappy well enough, you can avoid bonking on the wall and get the moon. To progress the story in this kingdom, you're supposed to go through the maze with an uproot. But for obvious reasons, I can't do that. So instead I was forced to lure these uproots into a corner where they couldn't harm me, and then position myself perfectly to backflip, dive to build momentum, and then triple jump, keeping momentum every time to Cappy jump and reach the other side. While this looks fairly simple, keeping your momentum is very precise, and most of the time I would get 1 or 2 good jumps, and then I would stop in my tracks and have to reset up everything to try again. After that, I had to fight to keep up with the flower roads, and entered this tower. Remember when I was struggling to go in a circle in Cap Kingdom? Well, now I have to do that again, for twice as long and under a strict time limit. Even when I would go as fast as I could, the need for first person mode to change my direction just slowed me down too much. So I would stop at these little bars whenever I could. I treated these as checkpoints, as I could stand on them for as long as I wanted and could perfectly align my camera before leaving. Using this strat, I made it out of the tower and absolutely wall up Skewer on my first go. Since he doesn't move at all, it's very easy to hit him, and since he comes straight at you, I was even able to do the fast strats quite easily. Lake Kingdom is thankfully much easier than Wooded, as you only need 8 moons to leave. Using my experience from Wooded, I used momentum to triple jump up this wall and started collecting moons. When you're underwater, you can't change the camera at all and are forced to just travel forwards, up, or down. But after lining Mario up, I was able to get this moon hidden in an alcove and travel down to Captain Toad. I also fought Rango, but he's a pushover, so I quickly find myself face to face with my nemesis, this turtle. I was worried I wouldn't be able to turn my camera or be able to do things like that. But even after you get in the hat, you can go into first person to change your direction, so the fight was easy. You can jump and dive to move around, and it also throws a punch which destroys these wooden balls that Bowser spawns in. Lost Kingdom's up next, and there were some cool moons. I figured that this cave would be impossible. You can't change your camera, and you need to get all of these flowers. But since the back wall is curved, I can backflip slowly to move over to the left. I then spin through, dived, and spin through again to unlock the moon. I had to backflip some more to line Mario up correctly before grabbing the moon. I also noticed something weird with the camera. For some reason it zooms in slow motion, and makes it really weird trying to change direction. The last moon I ended up getting was the shards. It was a little rough without a wiggler, but with some very precise dives and cap throws, I managed to collect all the shards and leave for Metro. I had to actually go through all of Night Metro, which was weird. But then I entered this tower, and I've gotta say, I just have a massive problem with towers after this challenge. Literally every single one has been a nightmare to complete, and this is the worst offender by far. This tower doesn't allow first person mode, so again we're gonna go back to 2-player mode. When in 2-player mode, you can have Cappy leave Mario, and then a Cappy ground pound right next to Mario, causing him to fall down and face Cappy. With this, I was able to slowly climb up, and when I say slowly, I mean slowly. I was being ultra careful not to dive off the edge and have to completely restart, so I made sure everything was perfect before moving. Once I got to the poles, it was somewhat better, as I could do most of the movement without Cappy. By the way, when I say I'm in 2-player mode, I don't mean that I got a friend to help me. I just set up 2 controllers, so I had to use each character one at a time, adding a whole other layer of difficulty. After escaping the tower, I faced Mecha Wiggler, who was easy. I can't move the tanks around, but I can aim their cannon and shoot, which is all I need. Now that we're in Day Metro, it does get a lot easier. I had some trouble on the top of the tower since there are so many edges, and it made it so I couldn't go into first person mode. But I eventually found a spot to change and made my way to the top of the tower. In this bullet bill sub area, I had to ground pound and dive into this pole and then stand on top of it to get up. Then I positioned myself perfectly straight in front of the bullet bill launcher so I could capture it and then get this moon in a trash can. In the next sub area, I had to roll through a bunch of people to get a timer challenge moon. My first attempt pushed me too far to the side. This was a problem because once I got to the moon, I was too far to the right to collect it and I couldn't change my camera because I was too close to the wall. So I did it again and stuck to the center this time. After talking to Captain Toad, I decided to go to Snow Kingdom. Since dives give you so much momentum, you slide super far in ice, and that made this room a big problem. Mario was constantly sliding right off the edge, and there's nothing I could do as you can only access first person mode when you're completely stopped. The shards room was much more painful though. You can't use first person mode, so I had to switch to 2-player mode to ground pound Mario. The problem with this is the ice guys that try and bite us. Since they move so fast, it's really hard to ground pound next to Mario and get him to change direction. I died a lot of times, but eventually I made it to the top. The first move in the poison sub area was free, but the second one was much more difficult. I first had to capture and uncapture the blowy Joey to just barely reach the platform and to despawn him so he doesn't blow me off the platform. Then I have to backflip dive and jump over to the spiny platform. Most times I got pushed off by the spinies or killed in my attempt to get on this platform, but eventually I got the perfect line and got up here. From there I spammed Cappy to kill the spinies and got a moon. I did a precise dive and double jump to span this gap and gather a ground pound moon and a chest moon, and then finished it out with Captain Toad and flew to Bub Lane. Immediately I found out that when you capture a Gushin and spin attack they face slightly to the side, so by spamming that I was able to get up here and then up to this moon as well. Besides that, there wasn't anything too notable that I did. Everything was pretty straightforward as I moved on to Luncheon. Spear was a piece of cake like always, and then I had to face the shard sub area. The secret moon is fairly easy to grab as it's so close to the start, but actually parkouring to get all of the shards was a nightmare. If I ever just slightly miss a dive or backflip, it means going all the way back to the beginning as I can't move after hitting lava. Thankfully, shards are still saved when you die, or else this would be just awful. I did a billion dives onto Cappy to get across these sketchy pillars and enter the fork sub area. The only hard move was at the very end, where you have to land a spin throw into this thing to capture a fork, and if you mess up at all, you're dead and have to restart the entire thing. But I got it third try and got the secret moon as well. The next moon was very painful to get. I have to break open this block of cheese with a hammer bro. So to get a hammer bro over there, I had to painstakingly capture, jump, and uncapture to slightly move him backwards. After several minutes of doing this on loop, I got him all the way back to the cheese and uncovered the switch. I landed this precise jump to get onto this platform for another moon, and then convinced the bird to grab my meat for another 3 moons. Everything after that was easy, so let's go fight a dragon. I'm never sure how hard Ruined will be, because it's usually either the most terrible fight of the entire challenge run or ridiculously easy. And thankfully for me, it wasn't too bad. Since the camera is constantly facing forward, it made it very time consuming to change directions. This made it hard to one-cycle every gate on the dragon's head and led to a very long boss fight. But that didn't matter to me as I got it first try. Next up is Bowser's Kingdom, and let's just skip to the interesting stuff. 4 of the 5 shards were very easy to collect, but this one was rough. I had to line up this Pokio well enough to hit a bomb into this box while I'm not able to walk. Surprisingly, Topper and Harriet were pretty easy. I just did slow shots with Harriet for an easy win, and with Topper I just took my time and won on 1 HP. To get up here, I had to lure a Pokio over to these blocks, and then capture it to fling myself up. I then did some parkour with these bombs and hit a checkpoint. From there, I had to kill an ogre and lure a Pokio to this edge here. Then, by precisely throwing Cappy slightly to the side and homing him in on the Pokio, it'll remove his hat and bounce him up to this edge. I can then lure him over to the wall and climb all the way up. At the next checkpoint, we need to capture this Pokio. Then by spin attacking and then very soon after poking, you can poke mid-spin and hit this wall. Then you can jump and do the same mechanic to hit the wall and start climbing up. After that wall is the final checkpoint before the mech fight, aka the worst boss fight in this entire run. To damage Mecha Brutal, I need to capture a Pokio and smack bombs at his feet, but I can't move in a Pokio. In the first phase, this isn't too bad as the Mecha Brutal doesn't move. I did have some trouble with the bombs killing the Pokios while I tried to lead them away, but I knocked down the mech quickly and ground pounded up to Harriet for our first bunny. Phase 2 also wasn't terrible as there aren't snakes yet, but now the mech moves. So I have to wait for the mech to finish moving, spit out all of its bombs, and then one bird. Move again, pray that it doesn't kill the bird while moving, and then once it stops, you can try and find the bird to hit the bombs with. The problem with this is I can't change directions, so most of the time I'm spin attacking to hit the bombs, which is about as accurate as a stormtrooper trying to hit the main character. And the mech only spits out a certain amount of bombs before moving again. And once it moves again, the bird I'm in is basically useless to me, and I have to wait again for another bird I can capture. It wasn't too hard not to get hit, but the fight in total took me 20 minutes for my one attempt. Now that we're done with the hardest boss fight in the game, we can move on to the hardest kingdom in the game, Moon Kingdom. Without the left stick, I can't do Moon Cave skip, and instead I have to traverse the entire thing, which starts out with getting a life up heart. Then I made my way into Moon Cave and had to do the first difficult jump. You have to roll to build up momentum and then triple jump to this pillar. From here it's hard to explain, so I'll just roll the clip. From here, we have to be very careful not to die, or else we're starting over from scratch. I picked up the life up heart, jumped across this gap, and took the wire up. We still haven't reached a checkpoint yet, which makes this next part very stressful. You have to ride a moving platform and parkour over obstacles. This first section isn't bad, and with some ground pounds, I cleared the breakable bricks. But the area with the wigglers is much worse, specifically here. You're supposed to use a wiggler to go around, but we can't do that, so instead I have to jump over this somehow. By jumping and diving, I can land on this platform. I then backflipped and immediately ground pounded to get myself to the back of the platform. I then waited for the opportune moment to ground pound, cappy jump, and dive to safety in our first checkpoint. Next up is the Bullet Bill section. To do this, I first had to climb onto these blocks and hit the hat off of Bullet Bill. I then jumped over to him and captured him at just an angle that he would fly into this wall. I then had to position myself on these blocks and blindly capture a Bullet Bill and pray he has the perfect angle to make it to the Moai area. I then just had some simple parkour over invisible platforms and I was up to the final checkpoint. With some backflips and dives, it was pretty simple parkouring between these stones. But Madame Brood is a whole other story. It's just like last time, no first person mode. And I now have a lot of platforming just to get to her. By sticking to the sides of the arena, it gave me better odds to be facing someone with enough space to get a hit on her. So by using that strat, I was eventually able to beat her and leave Moon Cave after 5 hours. Compared to Moon Cave, Bowser was a breeze, and I reached escape. Oh. Semantic number 2 time. There's no way to skip Bowser, so it looks like I'm jumping until the end. I knocked some pillars down and shook the controller to beat the game without ever walking, with 2 asterisks. If you enjoyed this, then click on the other amazing video on screen now, and have a great day.